Yeah.
I was actually sitting next to Rebecca. Yes.
I know. I have the sense they broke us up.
Separated us. It's like Catholic school. It's like,
My worst fear is
we've got to
falling off
put
the
somebody in
back
the
of
test between those two.
Somebody with sanity.
I mean, it's like people were saying, why don't you two just get a room?
Some truth to that.
Dick Finger got
Crazy
it
big
right.
satchel.
I'm with you. You want it up on a chair like mine?
That's great.
No.
Of course I remember. That's
Then you won't forget it?
It's all about.
No, I
We all really, and I'm running to the restaurant.
That's all I'm calling it, a satchel.
It's like pouring this
By the
way.
way,
Oh,
every
no.
time
There, you want some?
Yeah, no, it's all right.
Yeah, I got a little.
I actually got paid by these people to
Carry it.
Yeah.
Can you put that on your panel?
Yeah. Yeah. They said,
That's a-
Pellegrino came up and said, make sure the brand is out.
Yeah, that's a good deal you got. Panel branding.
No name water for me. Yeah.
yeah. You're nice. At least you're nice.
I find these chairs very small. Oh, these. It's on. Mine is on. How come yours is on?
Oh, it's on. It's on.
Yeah,
We're
this room sucks.
We're gonna be great friends.
Yeah.
Did you pour me water?
I-
You are fantastic.
Mike. Yeah.
Thank you.
Plenty more on that. What's that?
Oh, yeah, we got more right here.
Fantastic.
This is
Who needs, you want some this
work
one?
right now.
Do you need some?
I'm supposed to be writing an active episode 11 right now.
Wow.
Instead of in Marina.
Okay, wait. A cartoon.
It's
Those
already
were
written.
adultish cartoons,
Yeah,
right?
it's a formality.
They're
Any
sad.
papers of formality.
Right?
Shit.
Well, he's read for South Park, haven't you?
No,
Like order.
Have you seen for your advice in South Park? Someone said. On your mics.
Did they put us in order?
I don't know.
They just tried
Hello.
to you up.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Today's conversation is how to make $72 million in 12 months in film and television new media. I have some of the
Start
newest,
with 100 million.
I have some of the newest billionaires at the table. Come from different arenas. I thought perhaps we'll start at the far end and we can introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Liz Coughlin. I actually work for Edelman, which is the largest PR firm in the world. But we also do a ton of branded content, and we do it for clients like Activision, Disney, and a whole host of others. So that's it.
Rebecca Donahue, Director of Digital Content and Social Media for AFV Digital and Vindabona Productions, which is the creators of America's Funniest Home Videos, among other shows and properties.
My name is Brendan Birch. I run an animation studio called 6 Point Harness. The credit in the thing was a little misleading. I was not an executive producer on Cosmos, but we did do all the animation for Cosmos. I always feel like I should correct the record. But we have a show called Dick Figures that's a massive hit online, and a channel called Rugburn where we program original cartoons.
I'm Daniel Noth, and I just want to say to my co-panelists that anytime anybody makes a mistake that makes you look like a genius, don't cop to it. Just let people think that you're the executive producer of
I probably
Cosmos.
should have. Yeah.
Yes, don't let that
I had
guy
the
out of
same
bag.
feeling.
That doesn't leave this room. He's the executive producer of Cosmos.
And I'm the head writer for Modern Family, in case anybody's, just to follow that, in case anybody.
Anyway, my name is Daniel Noth. I'm a writer producer. I'm currently toiling on the blacklist for NBC and developing other projects.
He did have dark hair before he got that job, by the way.
Mike Rotman started in TV, used to write on shows like Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, South Park. Left that, went into new media, now run a company called Streaming Garage Production Company. We do branded deals as well as original content and multi-channel network type stuff. I also was head of production for Big Frame, which is a multi-channel YouTube network as well.
I'm Nick Reed, the moderator. I was an agent for many years at International Creative Management, running the film division. I'm a partner in a company called Relish Mix that does social data insights, a company called Shareability that's a viral marketing company specializing just in the YouTube space, And on a good day, I'll do some films and some documentaries. May I have a show of hands? How many people here are artists in the kind of creative world? Okay. So what I thought we'd start with this year, because a lot of people had this question after our talk last year, is kind of how to sell something. And there's a couple of mistakes a lot of people kind of make. And I think a lot of that is to do with not actually researching who you are trying to contact. So I thought it might be great if we just go down the table and talk about some of the tips that the panel would give you. If you have an idea and you want to sell something, some things that actually might give you some support. So let's start with Liz.
So when you're working with brands like I do, my advice is if you're trying to go work with folks like my agency, don't go in with an actual idea, because we work on behalf of brands who have their own ideas. So I think what's great is to make introductions just about your capabilities and services and types of work that you've done, because we're always looking for creatives to farm out projects to. So don't come in with your spiel on a show, just let us know who you are and the work that you've done.
And then I think mine would be the opposite. Do come in with a spiel for a show, because I work for a production company. So, I mean, I think the biggest mistake people make is they don't look into what kind of television we make, and they'll just come in, you know, with something that's just completely out of the realm of what we do. But if you just go and look at our production company website, if you look around at our digital platforms, you'll get a very good sense for, you know, what we create. And I think if you just really brainstorm and think around it, you can see sort of where we're going as well, and what might be a good brand fit and what isn't.
I would say just make sure you have a very clear point of view on whatever it is you are selling. I think so often everybody who you're selling to is you're one of multiple people that day that they're probably talking to, and you can always sniff out like a smart creator and somebody with a clear point of view over somebody who can't, and be able to answer questions, I think, is another big one. Just work with your friends and practice and practice and practice. I'm talking about more mechanics of selling. I think just as long as you're really passionate about something, it usually comes through.
Yeah, I think you know, to even what Rebecca was saying is correct as well. And it's not so much saying what are they doing, because that's always a moving target. Companies are evolving in where they're going. If they're good companies, okay, if they're gonna be in business in 2 or 3 years, they're changing. So what they do is a moving target, but it is possible to look at what they don't do. And if you've got something that's utterly inappropriate for the company, I mean, there's no point in even wasting anybody's time. And, you know, time's the one thing nobody can get back. So if you really want to screw up in the business, go in and waste somebody's time. The second thing is, to me, is you know, passion rules the day. You've got to, you know, you walk in there and know what you're talking about and tell them a story and understand. You know, a lot of people go in and they're thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great if I got this gig? Wouldn't it be great if I got this deal? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that solve a lot of problems I have? I'd be able to pay my bills. I'd be able to buy a house in Malibu, and I'd be able to do all these wonderful things with the money. And they think about them. And where you have to do is flip that and think, see, if you do that, you're going in with your hand out. You're kind of like a beggar. It's like a panhandler. Please give me the gig. I think it's a better attitude to walk in saying, these people have a problem. That is, they have a lack of content, and I'm here to help solve their problem. I'm the person who's writing in, and everybody they've seen today has sucked, and I'm going to be the one that doesn't suck. And just go in with that attitude. The third thing is, once you sell something, get the fuck out. Don't talk about how great it's going to be to work with them and how excited you are. Get the fuck out. Get up. The meeting is over, because all you're going to do from there on out is talk them out of the deal. So anyway, those are my three little words of wisdom, I guess.
I don't know if I can follow that. Yeah, I think just going down the line, it's know who you're pitching to. I've done brand deals with Trojan condoms. They had an idea, and then I went did a thing with After Earth or Will Smith where they weren't sure who they wanted for a host. You know, so be able to change on the fly. And then I had a pitch meeting where we were selling shows to Nerdist. They didn't like any of them. And then, but just, you know, don't be all disappointed and slump and walk out. Instead, they're like, what else are you up to? And as I was walking out, I told them something I was going to film, and they bought it right there. nothing to do with the pitch at all. So have your pitches ready, but also have your mind ready to, weave in and out and understand the situation that you're in and who you're pitching to as you're in the room, and feel them out. I always start off by just saying, if you didn't already go into the meeting, know what they're looking for, have them reiterate it again. Just say, what kind of things are you guys looking for, just to feel them out, and then pitch your stuff. And then you also can take it another direction if you need to.
Yeah, listen, keep your eyes open. Yeah.
I think for me, as someone who's spent a lot of time selling, I think that if you're going to try and get someone to give you 30 minutes of their time, you need to show them that you spent at least 30 minutes of your time researching them and the company. As Daniel says, companies always evolve, but you need to understand what it is. Going into a family company and selling them a horror ripper movie, not a good idea. The other thing is a lot of assistants, right? So the problem everyone complains about is no one calls you back. Well, no one calls you back because maybe they don't know who you are, right? So then the question becomes, do you have to team up with someone, right? Give away a bit of your project and partner with someone in order to get over that hurdle. The other way to think about it is the assistant. Most assistants don't want to be assistants. They want to be the creative executive. So if you can befriend the assistant, right, and be nice to them and get them to look at your project, should they do that and they love it, and it's happened to me in the past, so I can tell you from experience, but when my assistants come to me and said, oh my God, I've just seen this thing, I've just read this thing, you have to watch it, then I will watch it. And the problem you have is everybody on the panel, if they're in a buying position, everybody in town is on their phone sheet because they want to be sold something. So you've got to figure out how are you going to get on that phone sheet. And that either means you basically have the assistant kind of pre-look at it and say to the boss, actually, it's pretty good. Or you need to go, okay, I'm going to take one step away. So you know what? I don't know NBC, but you know what? There's a writer on that show called Daniel Knopf who's fantastic, right? Maybe there's a way of tracking him down through his assistant or through someone, right? Where you can just hook him on an idea where he goes, oh. And then the other thing is that to me, unfortunately, and Daniel probably, everyone might debate this, but unfortunately, everything is sold in sound bites. So if you can get one of these people on the phone and in 30 seconds, you can hook them with a concept, then you get 2 minutes, right? If you get 2 minutes, then maybe you get 5 minutes. And if you get 5 minutes, now maybe you have a meeting. So I think the other thing I would say too is that when you present something, you need to be so concise with the core idea, right? That you get someone to sort of go, yes, nice to meet you, nice, what? Right, and then you've got your time to do it. So that would be just what I would throw into the room. I thought we'd take a quick conversation about kind of where the business is going in terms of, they used to be in the old days film and television. Now you've got new media. New media now means so many different things. You've got multi-channel networks. You've got short form content coming from everywhere. So I thought maybe we'll start with Liz and just talk about how, in your opinion, kind of where you think the most interesting opportunity is to do new content is coming from and where it's going.
I think it depends on the audience, right? So if you're doing stuff for a younger demo, obviously YouTube. But I think if you look at the world in the category and space that I'm in, which is branded content, obviously digital is huge depending on whatever platform the client's in. But I will say that obviously if you want to take a risk, cable is still a great opportunity. But we have some clients that are doing deals with cable partners on branded content that's really fascinating and interesting. So that still seems very open to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say something similar. I would say Vine is where I'm going a lot now. I just think that people are really exploring things there that you never thought could have been done in 6 seconds, and making themselves huge stars out of being, early adopters to the platform. I think that when it comes to who we do partnerships with, we look for somebody who's very on brand for whatever property we want the partnership for. And then we also look at, do they have followers? Do they have a big audience for us? Because that's a big deal. And then the other thing that we'll look at is, can no one else do what they do? Like, are there 200 other people that could do exactly what they do? Because then I'm not going to do a partnership with them because I probably have an editor that could do the exact same thing. But are they creators that are so unique that there's only one person or two people that I can think of that do this particular thing, then I'm going to do a partnership deal with that person, if that makes sense.
I think we could go on and on. It's a very general question. We try to develop for everything at all times. We have 2 features that we're working on. We're always trying to sell television shows. I mean, there's still a lot of money in those businesses, there's going to continue to be a lot of money there. We still develop for digital, but I don't even know what that means anymore half the time. I mean, right? Like there's Netflix and there's Amazon, and they're very much like traditional TV companies. But there's also YouTube and Hulu, and I think for us, we just try to stay super focused on working on things that we really like. That's the only thing that we can do, is continue to look for things that we really like and that we think other people are going to like, and then from there try to figure out the buyers. And we more and more, it used to be that I don't know, I'm going to talk mostly from TV, but it used to be that you could like do development on one thing and you could kind of take it to like 4 different places and you could change it around a little bit. But more and more, it feels like even those cable networks that used to have some crossover are not crossing over as much. So we've been taking on things where it's like, okay, this looks like it's going to be, an Adult Swim or an FX show. That's it. We get 2 shots. So we have to be okay with that. Like just being a little more targeted than you were before. I think, am I kind of answering the question? Because it's very, very broad where all this is going. Like, no,
absolutely brilliant.
If we knew, I wouldn't be here. I'd be doing what he's saying, just like acting like I'm making money, and it's all a struggle still. So just try to find stuff that you really like and that you're passionate about. I think that's the only way you're going to win this thing.
Yeah. I was talking to an actress last night, and it was almost quaint. And I said, "Oh, she said I'm an actress, and I'm a film actress. I don't do TV." And I thought, well, that's really quaint. How quaint, because I don't think that what we're really rapidly flying into at this point is things are not device driven anymore. They're content driven. Are you doing long form content? Are you doing short term content? Are you doing uber short term content? Are you doing 15-second videos? Are you doing 12-hour stories, 24-hour stories, sort of limitless serials? It's all just content. And where somebody manages to watch that content is sort of irrelevant. It's what screen is it on? I see for a while that, I happen to be in long form content, and it'd be, stories that take a while to tell. But, it's just, wrap your brain around the idea of just, it's all about just content. It's not, oh, I'm writing for YouTube, or I'm writing for this, or I'm writing for that. I'm writing for whoever will put it up, whoever wants to distribute it, even if that's me, even if I create a dedicated website and just start showing my own stuff, it's just content. It's not television anymore. It's not film. It's not digital even. It's just what it is, and where people see it. The one real game changer that I've seen lately, and this was in the last couple weeks, is a friend of mine. The guy's he's a developer, and he's working with the Oculus, and I had a chance to actually sit down with the Oculus VR, which is like, it is a game changer. Everything's going to change once that hits the market, and there's going to be they're going to have to come up with entirely new UIs. If they can get something like that down to the size of Google glasses, it's going to end screens forever. We won't be looking at screens anymore. We'll be wearing.
You heard it here first.
Oh, I'm convinced of it. Once you try it, you're just going, oh, okay. Everything's going to change with this. He said, I'm putting it on, and you've got almost like a video game type of resolution, and you can see the pixels and so forth. But you're turning, and I mean, it's true VR. I mean, you're turning, you're seeing things. You look up, you see a sky. You look down, you see the ground. I mean, it's amazing. And all my mind's doing is, God, I'd love to tell stories inside this. I can put somebody into the middle of a Shakespeare play, you know. But the thing that he was saying, he tried the next generation on, which is hooked up to a big mainframe and is not even close to, you know, prime time yet. And he says, you put these on and you're standing at the top of a cliff and you look down and there's rocks down there. And you go, oh, I wonder what it's like to jump off the cliff. And you jump off the cliff and you land on the rocks and it says game over. He says, the new one, you're on top of a cliff and all you want to do is get down on your hands and knees and hug the ground because it's absolutely indistinguishable from reality. And that's when we're fucking with really cool shit. So anyway, that's my content thing, I guess.
I mean, I agree with that's what I've been saying. It's content no matter what it's on, whether it's on your phone or whether it's on a tablet, TV. These days, it doesn't matter. I was in TV and I left TV because I was doing reality and I just couldn't take it anymore. And then, so I just started doing all new media stuff, which I was dabbling in since the 90s anyway. And then next thing you know, I'm heading up production for a bunch of kids doing vlogs, which is sometimes worse than reality TV. So you got to follow what you love doing. You know, you can't be put down by, oh, this is what's going on right now on YouTube and I can't get any views, so I hate this and I can't do this. Instead, find your own passion and find out where it belongs, because there's so many places to either sell to or put up. You know, for the last 3 years, everybody's like, how you making money? How you making money? I'm not. And the last 2 years is, oh, okay, I'm selling shows. I'm doing brand deals. We have a full production company now. But it was a struggle, but it's not that much of a struggle anymore in the internet world. I mean, you're not going to get TV money. You're not going to get rich. But there are people who will pay for your content because so many companies need content right now.
So one of the things that always fascinates me coming out of advertising is that when I was an agent, I would sell movies, and I would sell a movie by sending 120 pages of paper to a studio. And in the international sales markets, they would have these incredible flyers and posters and stuff like that. And what I found ironic was that here we were in a visual medium and I'm selling a piece of paper. So the question I have for the panel, because there's a combination of buyers and sellers, is that obviously a good pitch takes many forms. But if you can rack your brains to your best pitch that you heard or the best pitch that you gave, in those pitches, were there any visual references? Was there any music? Was there any other things that tried to bring your world to life? Or was it just the poetic cadence of your words?
My best pitch was seriously the one at Nerdist that I was walking out and they asked me what I'm doing. And it's called Kids Court. I go, oh, it's comedian Andy Kindler. And we're going to have little kids and he's going to judge them and decide on their fate. And they're like, we're in. It's just simple little thing. I mean, yeah, I've prepared things before. I've done 5-minute, sizzle reels and pilots, and I've never done the music thing or anything like that. I'm more of a storyteller in the end. So I like to just kind of, bring them into that world. But it really was that simple sentence. It's one sentence. I get it. We love Andy. Let's do it. So you never can tell. I always feel like over preparing sometimes can mess you up because you're rehearsing so much that you're not having a dialogue when you're pitching, which is really important.
Go, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like the best pitch is someone that sells. The best pitch I've ever heard of was David Permit, who you probably, back in the 80s, this guy was like this pitch animal. He was like legendary. And the story was that he went in to pitch Dragnet, and he walked into the studio development. Went in, talked to the executives, and he just went, dun, 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 dun. And that was the end of his pitch. I thought that was so bold. And he sold it off of that. I wouldn't recommend that. But, I think if you can get people to, they come in and often you're in a situation where they're just sort of sitting back like, the king and queen in some big castle and you're the court jester and it's like, amuse me now, and if you can draw them in and make them laugh or smile, at least, if you can engage them on a human level, you're about halfway there. But the best pitch that I can remember recently was with NBC, and I went in and I pitched The Wolfman, which has since has been, they've already I end up being pay or played out. A pay or play deal is where you make a deal and they'll pay you whether you do it or not. which is like super welfare. It's like what you're doing is you're going, I hope they cancel the deal because I don't want to do any work and I want the check. And it was the Wolfman. And I walked in and I said, look, I want to do the Wolfman and I'm going to do, you know, and they immediately, the executive came out and said, well, you know, the problem with the Wolfman is, I mean, it's not like Dracula. Like everybody wants to fuck Dracula, but nobody wants to fuck the Wolfman. And I just looked her in the eye and I said, with total sincerity, I said, they're going to want to fuck my Wolfman. Because I'm doing 50 Shades of the Wolfman, baby. And they bought it, you know. And so, I mean, sometimes you just have fun with it. You go in and just and enjoy yourself. And you know, if you want to do it, you're going to do it.
It's expected of us. It's always hard to follow this guy. To be,
Sorry.
Since we're an animation studio, we have to be visual. That's, I think, a big part of it. But then there's also a little bit of a risk. You want to make sure that you design something that we like, but also that there's still room for them to develop. That's always a little tricky thing too. And I'd love to hear more from you guys on that. Is making sure that you have something that an executive still feels like they can tweak and have fun with and make their own. That's not the question. The other tricky thing is
No, that was a question.
yeah, well,
Yeah, you're on it, man. You're like a laser beam.
people are they're so pressed for time and just generally don't like reading. So scripts are really difficult. I think if you have a script, it really helps you to make something. People are now becoming more and more used to just clicking on a link or just looking at, you know, just having to process as little information as possible. So try to make it bite-sized and try to slowly get them to read that script. If you have a script, don't expect them to read it. So my advice would be to make something that's good. And if you can't afford to make the entire thing, try to make enough of it that it's compelling and that it makes it easy for somebody to click on and actually take a look at.
Let me add one thing to that. If you are a not known artist and you pitch something, the odds of you selling it are really, really bad, right? If you've got a track record like these guys and you pitch something, there is inherent trust in the artist because they have either worked with them before, they've had work produced. So unfortunately, again, general comment, always exceptions to the rule. But if you are a new artist, you know, unless you have actually put the pain in to actually write the finished TV play, screenplay, whatever it is you're selling, very, very difficult. So just be aware that track record, pitching, yes. No track record, it's not impossible, but really, really hard.
Yeah, you also get that whole passion thing out of the way if you've made something halfway decent too, so you don't have to act like a phony in the room. It's hard to be passionate or to look passionate to me. But like there's a project that we picked up it looks like it's going to get past our channel, and it was a guy and his brother animated an entire feature film together, and you know they're up in Winnipeg where I guess you have a little more time to do that kind of thing. But it's so funny. I mean, the guy is the most unaffected creator I've ever met. He's the most easygoing guy, but you watch this thing, it's called Apollo Gauntlet. You watch it and it's the funniest, one of the funniest cartoons I've ever made or ever seen. And you can tell they're passionate about 100 different things that happen in there. So I think if you have a hard time pitching, the best thing to do is just try to make something.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I always try to have something visual with my pitch. So the reason that I do that, now when I say visual, it could be something visual on paper as well, or it could be a video, something we've shot. And the reason that I do that is because I don't know what kind of thinker I'm talking to. Are they a reader or are they a visual thinker? The type of person that I'm pitching to, I don't know. So I want to make it as compelling in the room as possible. And this happened just not long ago. We went in to pitch a property that I can't fully name because we're working out the deal points. But I literally had these people across me that I knew they had seen hundreds of pitches already. Quite frankly, they looked bored, you know. So we're doing our pitch, our verbal pitch. And I literally said at one point, and the audience is a flesh mound shaped like a pizza.
That's good.
Now, if you say something like the audience is a flesh mound shaped like a pizza, you're going to wake everybody up, and then you better have a visual to back it up.
I'm totally stealing that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you better have a visual that shows, or they're going to think you're a crazy person. You know what I mean? And so we showed them, and the pitch completely turned in our favor. They were laughing. They were open. Sometimes the visual is about waking people up a little bit, shaking things up a little bit. So I almost always try to have that as well as something written, always.
So I'm a little bit of a suit in this panel. FYI, I'm not a content creator. I used to run some of the entertainment properties at Yahoo, and I will never forget hearing about Burning Love, which actually started digital, went to TV, right? Who's clapping? Burning Love, yay. So I remember Paramount coming to us. It was Red Hours, Ben Stiller. And I remember coming, and I'd heard every producer, content creator in this town was trying to get in on digital deals a couple of years ago. It was like a freaking frenzy. And so, but when I heard about Burning Love, for me who ran the business, nerdy side of it, I thought, oh shit, this is a home run, because their pitch was super concise. Ben Stiller, so you know it's probably going to be pretty funny. It had named talent. So for the world of Yahoo, which relies on recognizable actors and other types of content to attract people to click on something, right? So it had real talent. It was derivative content off The Bachelor TV show that's hugely popular amongst the masses. For me, that was a win. So they hit all of my sort of like key points in 13 seconds. And I was like, it's a no-brainer. It's done. Because for the context of the business I was running, it made sense on every front. And it was cheap versus what a TV, you know, network would pay for something like that. So without a doubt, in 13 seconds said yes.
Any other stories like that?
I don't know. I got to be careful about what I share, but yes.
See you afterwards at the bar.
Yeah.
You know, coming again from a sort of more of a sales background, you know, again, there are so many things out there. How do you get attention? You know, some things in the past to me when I was an agent, you know, everybody wants to get their script to a big agent because obviously they want to sell it. How do they get through the assistant? How do they connect with you? A couple of things that happened to me is over the course of a week, different objects turn up in my office, right? Every day, right? And it just said from Daniel, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, and it starts to build. And then on Friday, a screenplay comes. And each of the things that have come, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, are all related to the script, right? So it could be, you know, a plastic gun. It could be a rock climbing hook, right? Another time I get a box arrived also on a Friday, because I know that's when you take your script zone. Friday midday, big box full of survival gear. And in the middle of it, there was food and water and dehydration, all the stuff you get, like the military overstock stuff. And of course, in the middle of it, in a golden box, open the golden box, and there was a screenplay. And it was an action movie about a survival movie. So like, it's all about getting attention. So going back earlier to my comment about assistants, and I know that artists don't want to sell stuff because I know that's different side of the brain. But going back to that thinking is like, how do you tie into somebody? I'll give you one last quick example. There was once a gentleman who I wanted to meet, and I researched him, and I found out he was a huge tennis player. And I found out he was a member of a certain tennis club. I've never met him. I didn't know him. I wrote a letter to his office where I said, hey, I ran into you last week at the tennis club. You told me to follow up with you, right? I took the time and trouble to find out about him. Now, the second thing I did is he then responded through his assistant and said, yes, he'd love to catch up with you, right? Because if you're a decent person and you say that, you go, I guess I said it. I guess I met him. I guess I better meet him, right? Then what I did was I spent 2 hours reading everything I could find about him and then his company. So I went into that meeting about a week later, and he said to me, so Nick, tell me about my company. What do you know about my company? So it started in 1914 by two Swiss brothers. I went on for like 25 minutes, right? Up until present day. He didn't interrupt me at all, right? And at the end of that, I didn't even have to tell him what I wanted. He said, I need to find a job for you at my company. Because I had taken the time and trouble to really understand who he was, what his business was, right? And he figured if I put that kind of time and effort into just meeting, then imagine what that person would do if they gave you a job, right? So it comes back to that. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
If you guys walk out of here with like one thing that's landed, that should probably be it. That and just be nice, you know. Really. I mean that's textbook. That's textbook.
One of the things I also want to go on to now is that a show you talked to Liz about, when you were at Yahoo, the problem that you had was you had money, you had budget to make stuff, but how the hell do you get found, right? So what is the hook? What is the clutter? So I know some of the things you guys are pitching and doing are not necessarily that, but in terms of trying to get across the audience, so the great thing about social is it allows you to build a community. And I think that Brandon, you had said that you had this kind of online support that kind of helps you move stuff. So I guess the general question to the panel is how important is building a social community? Obviously on verbal pitches that doesn't exist, but in terms of doing animated format or short formats and stuff like that, you have any things you want to start with? And I guess probably start with you, Mike.
Extremely important. I mean, it depends. So, we're selling shows and we're also doing our own originals. When we do our own originals, you have to build up that audience. We were doing a movie show called Stupid for Movies, and we had a really big audience, and then we just didn't do it anymore because there's no budget. And one of the companies, Aura, was interested in it. And as soon as that company became interested, we took all our Facebook fans and went, hey, there's a couple of companies that might be interested. You guys should go like them and mention. They did. We got a call. It took a while to get the contract done, but so we did that to kind of push it along. And within a week, they're like, yeah, so let's do these. So it's important to have that, your community supporting you when you're trying to do something that you've put out yourself and want to take it to the next level. I also look for niches. We do a new show called Take My Bitcoins. It's a Bitcoin game show we do every week because there was a niche for Bitcoin that there was nothing mainstream at all. And I decided, wow, we can do the first worldwide game show. I don't know anything about Bitcoins at the time, but I knew you could pay everybody in the world through Bitcoins. So we put together the first worldwide game show. We bring in any celebrity friend I can get, and we do it weekly. We've given away $40,000 so far, all through sponsorships because it was such a niche to hit. And there's such a community that wanted something entertaining that was all sort of math and computer geeks at the time. It still sort of is. We're still sort of the only thing out there that's not very math heavy and computer heavy. So there's that. You can look for a niche that you're interested in that maybe doesn't have a community built. That's sort of what Felicia Day did back, with when she got her stuff on Xbox. She sort of hit the gamer world before it really got hit big. So yeah, anytime you're trying to do your own thing, the social media is really important. And I always said social media after you do your productions, your production's about 80% social media. 20% is pre-production, production and post, and about 80% is now getting it out there and marketing it yourself. It's changed a little bit now again because there's now some people buying content, which is great. But for the last 3 years, when you're out there alone, it's really important.
I don't know, Daniel, if you have any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I started as sort of an internet creature before the first show I sold was to HBO. It was a show called Carnival.
Fantastic show. Love that show.
Thank you. And I was actually participating in this Yahoo HBO internet board. I would weigh in. I would talk to fans because I was used to being on the internet and posting on boards and doing that kind of thing. It's just who I was at the time. And the people at HBO were like looking at me and thinking, what are you, 12? What are you, a teenage girl? You're going, it was like unheard of for a creator to actually sit down and just shoot the shit with fans. And to me, it's an opportunity because the problem with mass media versus say live media, like if I was a country western star, I'd stand outside the door and I'd shake hands with people and press the flesh and hold their babies and take pictures with them and that kind of thing. When you're in something as cold as television, you just don't have an opportunity to do that until sort of social media, in which you can on a daily basis sort of have an interaction with fans. And when like to this day, when we're running an episode of Blacklist, even if I didn't write on it, I'll come on and live tweet, and people like that. And you're sort of building a brand that is you. As an artist, if you're, it's a little different if you're creating a company, but if the company is essentially you, and you're the manufacturer, you're sort of creating this this entity that's sort of separate from you, and you give people sort of, you're giving the impression of an intimate sort of friendship, but you have to kind of closely guard your own real, your own real privacy and so forth, because you don't want somebody to show up on your front lawn and Jack Ruby your ass or something. I mean, at this point, the brand, I keep thinking about the brand, and I'm thinking, well, right now is when I need to hook up with like a heavily tattooed junkie girlfriend. That would probably feed the legend at this point. So if there's any heavily tattooed junkie girlfriends out there, I could use you right now, but anyway.
That's a call to action.
Just
right
anybody,
there.
anybody who can throw a chair through it like a hotel window would be good.
Speaking of calls to action, I think that was actually when we first saw our biggest bump with Dick Figures, was when we did a music video where we put out a song, we gave out assets, and we just very simply explained just kind of internal rules about the characters. But I think received like 1,500 submissions from just fans from around the world, where each of them took a little chunk of the video and submitted their part, and then we just kind of edited them together and chose which ones we liked. And that thing was a like massive whopping success, because kids could go like, oh my God, there's my clip right there. We thanked everybody in the credits. We have to be a lot more clever, I guess, in cartoons, because we're at a disadvantage. Like, first of all, a lot of animators just generally don't like being in front of cameras. That's kind of why they're behind the camera and making and doing drawings. I'm generalizing here, but it's pretty true. So it's a difficult thing. We got really lucky with Ed and Zach. They're very charismatic in front of the camera. They're best friends in real life, and you can kind of feel that. And whenever those guys would do a video, just explaining something or trying to give something more context, we'd see these huge spikes. So we try to kind of work that into deals now when we buy shows from creators, that they have to talk to the audience, they have to kind of engage in the community. But those AMAs are awesome that he's talking about. That helped us. We got bumps from that. And then the community part of this, between calling to action, but also finding people in your community, like the Tom Ska was really supportive. The guys from Explosm were really supportive. You'll find that everybody in that YouTube scene, most everybody, is still kind of, I wouldn't say struggling. In some cases they're struggling, but everybody's sort of looking out for each other because they know they're still in uncharted territory. It's becoming more and more, that there are clear economics and how to make money, in there. But there is definitely an us versus against them kind of thing, and it's fun. People can bring heat to each other's channels and efforts by just reaching out and talking to each other. Mondo, the guys who distribute Dick Figures, are like really, really good at this. But yeah, I think we're at a continued disadvantage in that cartoons are a little bit harder to make than just hitting that red button and talking to your audience. So we're always sort of faced with that challenge.
Yeah. What we did on the AFE side of things is really, I always thought of us as a clip factory, and that would be to some degree a negative, because on YouTube, you want some kind of flagship content, some reason for people to return week after week. And what we would have is more like the viral video, somebody's cat on a keyboard that comes into us and we put it up and it goes viral and people visit once, but they're not coming back again and again. So what we did is we partnered with the Shaytards, which is one of the #1 YouTube family vloggers, and debuted a 17-episode series with them. And everything these guys are saying is accurate in that regard. He has built up his fan base so much that we got, I think, just by putting up the promotional channel trailer, like 14,000 subscribers, all his fans coming over. The interaction on his videos is huge. when compared again to like a cat on a keyboard, video, we actually use some of that interactivity and commentary to shape some of the content going forward. So it's a conversation. That's the best way, and you should use it as such. Whereas, I've always thought of TV as more of a monologue in a sense. This digital is definitely a conversation, and you can use it. The worst thing you can do is ignore it. You can really use it to shape and improve your content. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, and at Edelman, so now on the flip side of the business that I'm on, we actually manage massive communities for some big entertainment brands. And so to your point, I think just be very proactive about community management and have a strategy with how you're going to manage your social channels, because it is really, really important. And obviously authenticity is key, which is a lot of what these guys are saying, but just have a plan, have an approach, and just build on it. Because if you're doing it right, it's naturally going to build for the most part. And then you have to figure out other strategies and tactics to help build it faster. But it's just.
And most of the time, the audience is actually helping you with that already. Yeah. I love John Evershed is the CEO of Mondo. And on every single video they still upload, he reads at least the first 100 comments, every single video. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of discipline, and especially if you've got a lot of things going up. But they are, I mean, most of them are like first, or just dopey trolly comments. But there are some like super insightful things in there. There was one episode that we did that we all felt was a little soft. And one of these kids was like, I'll give them one more chance. But if they're all going to be like this from now on, I'm not watching the show anymore. I was like, okay, he's right. We totally knew this was going to happen. But, you start seeing echoes of ideas. And that's where it is really a dialogue. It's totally a conversation between your fans and your content creators.
And if you're an individual, other than if you're of a show, it's important, like you were saying with Shay Carl. And I know, so we were doing this Will Smith thing, and it was Survivor Series based on his movie. And we had to help find a host for it. And they wanted everybody's follower numbers and interaction and Facebook and all that. And that's why we ended up going with Les Stroud, who was on Discovery Channel. And we had other people who were local and much cheaper and just as, good on camera. But there's reasons, especially for brands. So if you're an individual too, and you're your own brand or you're an actor, it is important to do all this social media stuff. And by the way, I've seen people who buy their views. We can pretty much tell that. Yeah. We've had that. We did a show with Kurt Smith from Tears for Fears, and we had bands come in, and the first band had 1 million followers on Twitter, and this was 3 years ago. And they didn't bring any fans in. It was like, there's still a couple hundred watching live. And I'm like, what happened to your 1 million followers? You can definitely tell, and it only hurts you in the end if you're kind of doing that scam as well.
Yeah.
This goes back to kind of the media that you decided to choose. In the old days, you could be the drunk in the bar. I'm a writer. You just do your thing, you send it off, and you do nothing.
I resent that.
I miss that. Now we got to talk to people.
I haven't got the TV yet. Did anyone see, I think it was last week, Wattpad? They just sold a big film project. Wattpad is a place where writers can post their book chapter by chapter, build up a community, people can share it. And in the case of this book, I think it got some crazy number, like 15 billion page reads or something. And Paramount came in. What buyers love, of course, is to have their job really easy for them. So it goes like this: Twilight, big selling book, millions and millions and millions of sales. Oh, could be a movie, right? Most of us don't have that opportunity, which is why this notion of community is important. The two things, one is, old media says, okay, I'm in television, I'm CBS, I have a particular demo that I want to sell to. I think Brandon mentioned how different buyers want different things. And these days, everything is getting more and more niche, right? So USA have just now started to change again, because they're trying to, even they have good numbers, they're trying to change the type of shows they've got. If you're in the new media space, okay, then the beauty there is that you can actually go out and prove to people that there is a community. The general rule of selling is that people generally want to buy general stuff, right? They want to buy a certain kind of show because that's what they do. Then there's the unexpected, like a South Park or something, which is the exception to the rule. 99 times the exception to the rule is a no, 1 time is a yes. I think that to me, it's like if you have an idea of who you think your audience is, right? That should help you again investigate who am I going to connect to or who am I going to sell my show to, right? If you can back that up with objectivity, not subjectivity, such as, you know what, I'm selling you this game, and on Machinima, there are 5, games of a similar type of arena. They've both got over 50. But your job is to think through your world. So if you're going to come to me with Hunger Games, right, you come to me and say, look, this kind of stuff I know is huge because on YouTube there are these channels or there are these videos. The biggest trending sales in books is the young YA market. So if you come to a room and you tell me things, right, which are objective facts, it makes me go, shit, I thought the idea was shit. But now maybe I need to rethink it because fuck, there could be an audience, right? So, sit down with your best friend and have them be really difficult and ask you all these questions. And I think it comes back again, my recurring point is preparation, The recurring thing here is passion, know your idea. Your job is to figure out how to break down your idea, if you can, to the smallest core thing that gets the initial attention, right? Then you need to know everything about it, right? So when Daniel gets faced with Wolfman, that's a classic example that I had someone last week talk to me about a meeting they had. It was a television pitch. And they said, there was a 4-character show. And he goes, these are your 2 best characters. And the 2 best characters wasn't the lead character. And he got all upset about it. And I said, and we talked about it. And what I realized had happened is that he had not conveyed, right, his imagination of that character. So what happened is the person he was pitching to had their own idea of what he said. So when Daniel says Wolfman, probably all of us see a big hairy guy, right? Daniel had a completely different thing. So what you have to understand is that, perception is this crazy thing where you're telling somebody something and you're speaking supposedly the same language, but they might be hearing something different. So again, I think the main thing is you have to figure out concise, right? Think about the questions they're going to ask you. Who cares? Why do I care? Why do I like them? Who's going to watch it? And stuff like that. And I think that's all about helping. If you talk like a duck, you walk like a duck, you're a duck. So if you come in with an idea and you have it all beat down, you know who the audience is, you know why people are going to like it, you are like 75% closer to the, wow, let's go do it.
And if you do the tennis club thing, you're like 100%.
So we have 10 minutes. Does anyone on the panel want to say something that we haven't covered?
Should we open to questions? Or?
So, questions. Anyone from the floor would like to ask a question about anything related to becoming a billionaire? All right, what about?
Actually, there was one thing. I was saying make something, and I just sit there realizing how hard that is to do. I actually have seen really effective pitches where, and if you're really smart about it and you just boards, like I've seen people come in with, pictures from other projects or, this video is actually sort of exactly the kind of tone that I want. And this song is, that you can kind of piece things together. I mean, it's obviously better to make what you're going to try to make, but that actually is back to your visual thing. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. It's a little more.
Yeah, we actually
doable.
we did one where we were doing a Warhol project, and so we put together basically a little a concept piece, which was heavily graphic because he's an artist, and so we wanted to sort of, it was very splashy, and we put it on a PDF, loaded it onto a thumb drive. And then we had the thumb drive sealed in cans of Campbell's soup, and we sent those out. And so sometimes, a little bit, look, it's show business. Be a showman. Don't be afraid to work the bally a little bit,
I think that comes back down to if you find out enough about the person, right? And then you put a bit of effort into the delivery, then that means the recipient is actually thinking, well, these guys at least have got some balls, they've got some imagination, and that actually gets you to page 3, 4 on the screenplay. So again, it comes down to you want it more, you're more passionate, you're brighter, and you're willing to, go the extra thing. The first thing that you sell has to be 3,000% better than anything else, right?
Yeah, a little bit of panache is good because, but be careful because it's going to raise people's hackles because they say, well, they're doing this in order to maybe take my eye off the quality of the material, which might be might not be good, it might be mediocre material. So
Both
they're-
could be good then.
They're doing a lot of sizzle here, but just make sure the material's great. But adding that panache is not such a bad idea. What we did find out, we got a lot of complaints because we found out that like thumb drives don't work if they've been soaked in cream of mushroom soup. But other than that, worked like a charm.
Just one last thing, and I'll come to this lady. Many years ago, I used to represent particularly a lot of filmmakers. And when you're a filmmaker, particularly the director, you want to get a job, it's very difficult. One of the things that I think I was one of the first people working with was like what we call a rip-o-matic. One of the big things is thematic and feeling of something, and that's where music and images come in. So, I was listening to an interview yesterday about Baz Luhrmann's new Chanel No. 5 spot. He spends a lot of time just looking at magazines and ripping out references, right? He's ripping out references. He's trying to get an idea of what his vision's going to become. So you should not, again, if it makes sense for your project, think about photography, video. On YouTube, there's pretty much anything you can. There is a way without too much expense, a friend or learning a basic editing program, where you can come in and give like a little 1 minute, 2 minute sizzle reel to kind of set the tone of the world and the feeling. And this is going to be a look, and this is kind of the music, and this is going to be kind of like the cars and stuff like that. There's millions and millions of dollars of amazing footage that you're going to a pitch meeting. It's not like you're going to sell it publicly. You know what I mean? So anything you can show somebody to, again, this perception. When you say Wolfman, what do you mean, right? Anything you can do to show your visualization in your mind is a good thing. Lady there.
I wanted to ask about how you pitched Carnival, because it's such a departure at the time with all this talk about.
Well, I dosed all the executives with lysergic acid. No, Carnival, I mean, actually, that was really tricky. It was a very tricky picture because it was a tone piece, and it's almost the one thing you really can't convey in a pitch session is tone. And so I created a fairly complex. It wasn't a leave behind; it was more of a leave ahead. It was like we sent them this piece, and what happened, it was weird. The person I was developing with is this wonderful director, Scott Wynant, who won multiple Emmys and found me. Literally, he found me on the internet. and so he said, well, we need a show Bible. I said, what's a show Bible? Because I had no idea what I was doing. And he told me, and I started to try to write what I thought was a show Bible, and I just got bored to pieces about 2 days into it, and I thought, no, you know what, I'm going to do this to where it's entertaining, to me. And I created this document, and I took the point of view of like this academic who was the idea that all these people really did exist in history. And it was an academic, and he'd done interviews there was like an interview with Samson that was done in like 1978 at an old folks home. And there was fake newspaper articles and fake police reports and fake religious tracts. And I have a background in graphic arts, so I was able to do all that. And I created this fairly complex document, unlike pretty much anything they'd ever seen before at that time in 2002. And it just bowled them over. But it conveyed tone. It conveyed what we were doing. It was grounded. There was a sense of reality to the show, that it was a dusty show, and that it wasn't a whimsical fantasy or whatever the hell, So that's helpful. But I also, that said, I mean, there's things I've developed very complex pitch documents, and then there's other things where it's almost better just to go in and just tell a story, because people love to hear stories. So if you can do that, then, that may be the best way. You just kind of have to feel your way. It depends on the project.
We have time for one last question, sir.
In terms of being either an individual or being a part of a company that has a bunch of IPs, stuff that you either create or stuff that you purchase and acquire, going out to hundreds of pitches and getting negative feedback time and time again, do you ever, what happens to those projects? Do you eventually hang up your coat? Do you repurpose them? Do you fight for them? How does that happen?
Well, it's funny that you ask. There's one project that we went out with that we feel like they messed up by not picking up, and I think it was in the messaging, and I can get into that later. But we just looked at it again a couple days ago, and it was like they messed up. Like this has to sell. This is too good. And I was talking to the creator about it, and we had brought on a writer and everything. And he's like, well, wait, should we go out with it as Rough Justice? Because that was the name of the show, or its new title, Passion Beach. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, we're just going to like take away the desert, put them on a beach, and just take their there's like these two like lawmen who administer justice like through wrestling. And it's pretty funny. And I was like, oh, Passion Beach. Let's talk about this. But
Savage Beach.
To answer the first part of your
Savage
question,
Beach is better.
Savage Beach.
Yeah, that's better.
They that is good. It's so hard for me, like rejection on any level. It just sucks. Were you talking about like, does it just wear you down after a while?
Yeah, in that sense, and also, like you said, you have a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you have to compromise your passion for the piece and say, okay, it's time to put this to bed?
You sort of know when it's time to put it to bed, but they never quite go away. And with we've been around for 11 years, and it's interesting. There's like 3 ideas that we've dusted off that have actually now received interest because of the wide spread of buyers now. So I don't know. You never know. There's a rival animation studio called Titmouse, and they had the show that they pitched to Nickelodeon a long time ago. Called Motor City. Eric Coleman couldn't buy it at the time, and then he went over to Disney. One of the first phone calls he made, literally 10 years later, was like, "Hey, Chris, do you still have that car show?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do." And they picked up, I think, like 26 half hours of that show. So there's always going to be somebody listening. If it was really good, it's going to see its day at some point. And you just got to be sharp enough to remember where these things might fit in later on down the road.
I think, as a sales guy, I'm sure Liz has had this, is that an idea comes in the door, you go, no, shit, don't want it. Same idea comes back with Ben Stiller. I love it. Elements are a really important thing. Every buyer wants to try and make it easy on themselves. They want to try and get a better chance of winning. And you do that by buying relationships with talent that have a hit record. So, again, not knowing, where you're going, if everyone is saying completely point blank, it's bad, then your question becomes, are you delivering it properly, right? If you still think the idea is good, then the other question becomes, then maybe, you need to partner up with some element, whether that be a director or a producer or another writer. But I think for me, at the end of the day, if you absolutely have a complete passion and you know that you're right, then you got to keep doing it. Now, if everyone tells you it's absolutely shit 99 times, then think about it. But traditionally, I think that people in this town don't normally say bad things when they pass, because tomorrow you could be a genius, your next idea could be good. So sometimes I find it's a little hard to get specific feedback. But, to probably end on the golden note, William Goldman, one of the great writers in Hollywood, nobody knows anything. So I think, thank you very much.
We do some tours.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Take it on the road.
Actually, it's going to be better.
That's great.
You say you were in a multi.
Yeah,
Hi.
so I was
Hi.
a big fan. So was I. My own.
Hi, Cordelia.
Yeah,